Please be seated. We're back on the record of case number 12 CF 1083A, State versus George Zimmerman. I believe the jurors are back there. They're on their way up.
Your Honor, B72, present.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. You are hereafter known only as B72, juror B72, and the attorneys are going to have an opportunity to ask you some questions about the questionnaire that you filled out on Monday morning. Mr. De La Ronda, you may start.
May it please the court?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Bernie.
I'm sorry, Susan.
I think she's ready to have her seat.
Well, let me tell her that we've opened up court and we have called in juror B72. Thank you. Go ahead. You may
Thank
proceed.
you. Good afternoon again, sir. I'm going to be asking you questions limited to in terms of the publicity and also whatever else you respond on the questionnaire. Okay? If I've got it right from the questionnaire, you don't really pay much attention or care for the news. Is that correct?
Not at all, nope.
Okay. Why is that?
It seems like whenever I turn it on, you either heard about something sad or tragic. The last time I turned it on, tornadoes, shootings, it's stuff it drags you down, it's pessimistic, and I'd rather not get myself involved with that.
Okay. And so your contact or knowledge of this case is just basically when you briefly were surfing the TV stations and stuff, you came across it periodically?
Yeah, and matter of fact, I remember the day when I first heard about it. I won't forget it. I came home from the gym and I was excited. I got a one-arm pull-up. I've training for months. And I just wanted to relax, kick back. So I turned on the TV and I forget the news station, but I heard the name, Zimmerman. Okay, and at the time it didn't hit me. Changed the channel. About 4 or 5 channels later, again, I see it. Breaking news, Zimmerman, Travion. And I was web surfing, I saw nothing, so I'm like, okay, I'll listen to it. And from what I got, I know this is gonna sound bad, but I didn't care about it. It didn't involve me, it didn't involve anyone I know about, so I'm like, okay, what happened sucks, but after that, I didn't pay any attention to it, just turned it off, went on with my day.
Was that left-handed or right-handed?
Both, I can do
Okay.
it. Yeah, so.
All right.
Yeah.
And in terms of, it was a local TV station that you're seeing that?
Yeah.
And you're right there. They've got speakers all over. They got microphones
okay.
all over, so you're able to pick it up. You're fine. Just feel comfortable.
Okay.
In terms of where you were, would it have been local and national, I gather?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember which station?
News 13?
Okay. And from the national news, which one do you remember?
CNN.
Okay. And do you recall if it was the same night that it happened or the following day? And we're going back to February 2012. It was around the time it happened?
Sounds right. I remember that also working at a small private school, so yeah, sounds right.
Okay. What do you remember first hearing about the case, what do you remember being said on the news about the case?
Mr. Zimmerman, he was, I guess you would call him a community patrol guard, and I forget they were apartments or like community homes. I don't remember what they were. Something Lakes. It's not coming to me. But I remember he was patrolling the area, and from what I gathered, he saw a suspicious figure. At the time, I didn't know that was Trayvon Martin. But next thing, you know, some altercation, something happened. I don't know what happened. And tragic that Trayvon Martin, he died. But the part that I don't understand is how did he die? I mean, some altercation happened. Did he pursue home? I don't know. Did Trayvon come after home? I don't know. I don't know the details. So I can't make a judgment call if you don't know the facts.
Sure. And again, we're not allowed to tell you what the facts are unless you got to wait, I should say, into your juror to hear the facts. My question is, what do you remember from the media, their aspect or their take on it? You remember what they said other than that?
They said
they have opinions sometimes.
Yeah, they said the same stuff in different ways. Zimmerman, he saw a suspicious figure, he pursued him, and then I heard that Trayvon Martin, he came after Zimmerman, and I remember Skittles. That's
okay.
Really,
right.
And then after that, I didn't pay much attention.
And after that all, you didn't pay much attention at all?
No, it's after a while, I just got sick of hearing it. I know it sounds cruel, but I don't want to hear about it anymore.
How about when you recently got a jury summons, did you think, oh, I might be on the jury?
When I got the jury summons, it's funny because I just got hired at Lake Mary Prep. And I was like, oh no, this isn't going to sit well with my employer.
And let me just interrupt you if I could a second.
Yeah.
You've filled out the questionnaire, and some of this the court has determined is going to be confidential, so...
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's not a problem. But anyways, I got the jury summons, and it didn't hit me at the time. Okay, I might be going to this, Mr. Zimmerman, I might be going to something else. And then, I believe it was Monday when all the attorneys came in, Mr. Zimmerman came in, I'm like, I recognize that face. You're Zimmerman. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to probably have to sit through this.
Okay. So you didn't do any research once you found out that you were a potential juror, like to see what cases were going on, what case you may appear on?
No.
Okay. Do you interact at all in social media? Do you partake in social media like Facebook or other kind of stuff?
I have an old MySpace. I do have a Facebook. I'm on there every now and then for Arm Wrestling Club.
Okay.
One-arm pull-up training,
Sure.
That's why I'm on there. And other than that, I don't have a large group of friends. I only have 2 or 3 close friends
Sure.
that I talk to.
My question is, when you open up your Facebook account to interact with people, do you see any news, or have you seen any news regarding George Zimmerman or this case?
No.
Okay. Have you looked at any websites dedicated to this case, either for George Zimmerman or for Trayvon Martin?
Nope.
Okay. How about national news? Did you listen to any national news regarding this case? Not at all? Fox, CNN? You mentioned CNN, I think.
CNN, yeah. It's because of my dad. He sees it every now and then, but I have a dark view about the media.
What is that? You just don't believe what they say, or you just... I know you mentioned in terms of pessimism, but...
Yeah, I tend to be like one of those, I don't want to say conspiracy, because people are like, ooh, conspirator. But I try to avoid the media.
On purpose?
Yeah, literally. I don't want to be brainwashed. That's how I see it.
Okay. Since you don't want to be impacted by the media, do you on your own try to look at sites that may be more, if there is such a thing, in terms of unbiased, more just straight facts?
No, most of what I got, the reason why I'm this way is because just family, friends, when I went to college.
Okay.
Very liberal professors there.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't like him, I gather, from your reaction.
It's too far out there.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Now, have you discussed the case with family or friends?
No.
Nobody in your family's talked about the case, about their feelings about one?
I'm very private about my life. What I do is what I do, and I don't want other people getting involved at all.
Okay. I'm assuming by the answers you've given so far that's why you were able to unequivocally say that you can keep an open mind and have not formed an opinion in this case. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember anything at all about the case other than what you've told us already? Do you remember any photographs that you would have come across on the media or on the internet about the case?
Not that I can think of, no.
How about any kind of videos or commentary about the case? Okay. How about do you, in terms of when you do turn on the TV, and not necessarily watch the news, but maybe it's ESPN or that, did you come across any commentary just briefly mentioning, you know, they have alerts and all that kind of stuff?
Right. No, as of late, I've just been watching Netflix.
Okay. Have you heard of any commentary by lawyers or other people related to the case, or just national commentators about the case?
No.
You weren't curious at all about the case, even it happened in Seminole, you were not? Okay. Now, you mentioned family. How about friends? Have you talked to any friends about the case? Right?
Nope.
Has anybody expressed to you an opinion about the case?
Well, I've gotten friends who are like, yeah, he definitely did it. And I had, you know, I don't want to say who they were or whatnot. I had one. I won't forget it because he was like, oh no, it's almost in your territory. You know, naturally you would want to protect it. And very colorful guy, you know. But other than that, just those two people, they stand out. It's like you have one on the end of the spectrum, another on the other end. And then I'm like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I just don't care about it.
Okay.
That's what I told him.
So one person had, in terms of saying protecting territory, meaning like Zimmerman was protecting his territory?
Yeah, he was just guarding his turf. It's
And
like
what did
someone,
you think of that?
Well, I mean, I can understand if I saw a person in my neighborhood, I didn't know who he was. I'll be naturally suspicious. I wouldn't go pursuing him, though. You know,
Okay.
probably call the cops or something.
Sure. Okay, and how about the other, you said the other side was somebody, I guess, advocating Trayvon Martin's side, or?
Yeah, it's, he was like, well, Trayvon Martin was just in the area, you know, he was like wearing a hoodie or something, and he was just walking through, and he didn't, guess he was intimidated by his presence, so he pursued him.
All right. So you had both sides, I guess, telling you about it, and you said you didn't form an opinion as a result of that, or did you? That sway you one way or the other?
It's, you can't make an opinion when you don't have the facts. I mean, it's, that to me, they were both emotional, and I'm like a stoic guy. In my opinion, it's, emotions are rather weak. You can't make decisions based on emotions. So you have one guy who's very aggressive, you know, he's upset, frustrated. And then you have another guy, he's laid back, he's like, yeah, he's just guarding the area. You know, so it's, they were both emotional about it. So, and I don't tend to take people who are emotional seriously.
So in your opinion, in arriving at a decision, you would automatically disregard what people have told your opinions or what you limited knowledge of the news and rely on what actually happens in the courtroom?
Unless they're someone I look up to.
Okay. Is there anybody in that case that you would look up to, that you would go for advice, or?
No.
You understand, if you're picked as a juror, you can't go and consult the person you looked up to, whether it be, you know, a father figure or something like that. You couldn't go ask them their opinion. You
Right.
only have to
Yeah,
rely
I
on.
understand that.
Okay.
I've never been close with my father anyways, or...
Sure, okay. Or other people that you
Yeah.
look up to. How about you're picked as a juror, you sit in the jury, one of those seats back there, and you start listening to the evidence, and then you seem to remember something a little different than what the witness is saying. Do you think you could leave that outside the courtroom?
Yeah, I'd definitely be able to. It's funny you say that, because not too long ago I got in a discussion with one of my friends, and we both went to elementary school together. And he was telling me about this one story, but I remembered it differently. You know, it's just, when you think that far ago, your brain fuzzes things up, so it's not reliable.
And my question is, if you remember something that came out in the media, if it doesn't come out in the courtroom, that means that it wasn't evidence. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. Do you have any issues about that?
No.
Okay. Do you remember hearing anything about Trayvon Martin, other than you mentioned a hoodie? Do you remember anything more about Trayvon Martin?
He had Skittles.
Okay. Anything else besides that?
Mm.
How about George Zimmerman? Anything other than he was a neighborhood watchman or something? Anything else besides that? No pictures or anything like that you recall seeing? That's a no for the record, I see.
Right, yeah, that's a no.
Okay, all right. I gather in your questionnaire you mentioned you did not have any conflicts in terms of insurmountable hardship that you couldn't serve as a juror. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned one of the questions, and I don't know that we made privately, but let me see if I can ask you. The last question, you remember what it was, and I don't want to get into what it is.
Gotcha.
You mentioned that you have a relative,
Mhm.
and that relative's occupation, you wanted to bring it to our attention, that is a state and defense, and obviously the judge. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'm on purpose not referring to who that is. Do you understand? Since we're referring to you as B72, I'm going to call that person a relative of yours.
Gotcha.
But you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you think that relative's occupation in some way would interfere with you being able to serve as a juror?
Not at all. No, my relative, we've never been close. Not that we hated each other, but emotionally distant, I guess you could say. And he's always been, just like me, very private. That runs in our family. We don't.
So you don't believe that that relative's occupation in any way would interfere with you being able to sit as a juror? Have you ever listened to his opinions at all about the law or about other stuff like that?
He doesn't talk about his work life one bit. So.
Okay. You put it here, and again, without referring to what it is, why did you feel it was important to put it here?
I'd imagine when you have a jury duty, you would want the court and everyone involved would want to know, okay, given their occupation, it's
Right.
irrelevant. And I felt that it's important. You would want to, you want to make sure you have the best person for the job.
You wanted to alert to make sure everybody was aware of that.
Yeah, because it's down the road, if the media found out about it, they might blow it up, take it
I
out of
got you.
proportion, and
Okay.
it gets messy.
Yes, sir. No, and we appreciate you doing that. I'm trying to keep it as vague as I can on purpose. Okay.
Gotcha.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, you do.
I have no further questions. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Just stay seated, Mr. West.
Afternoon.
Howdy.
My name is Don West. Myself and Mr. O'Mara represent George Zimmerman. You mentioned that you had recently started a job. How long have you worked at the place doing what you do that you indicated on the questionnaire?
Okay. Well, I started on the job as a new position. Before I worked as a program coordinator, and now I'm working as a maintenance technician. So, and when I got that maintenance technician, it's been 2 or 3 days that I've been working on it. And then of course my boss is like, oh, you got that. We have a lot of work to do, but...
Is that in a particular department?
Well,
What?
the maintenance technician is like facilities. So anything, I jack of all trades, if you will, if that's making sense.
Well, does it involve physically taking care of the property?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. Lights, walls, whatever they need, I do.
Gotcha. And when this happened in February of 2012, were you employed with the same at the same school?
No, it was another smaller private school, Center Academy.
Okay. And how long? Let me just tell you what I'm getting at. Were there any periods of time after this event in February of 2012 where you weren't employed and might have had a lot more time to pay attention to the news?
Yeah, my term ended with a Center Academy May 24th or 25th, I think it was, and that's looking for a new job because it was a small school. So I was looking for a new job, and career builder, monster, something hired, job postings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because at Seminole State at the time, one of my friends from the tutor center, he's like, hey, you know what, the word's not coming to me right now, but I was feeling like down. I was frustrated. I couldn't find a job, and I had bills to pay. So he's like, all right, check this, this, and this. I kept checking the websites, and then the one for Lake Mary opened up. And at the time, it said teacher. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have my bachelor's yet. But anyways, I applied for it, and then I get a call maybe 2 weeks later. I was at the Walmart. I was shopping with my dad. And And I get the call, I take it, and next thing you know, I go for an interview and I got it. So.
And that was in January of this year?
No. The summer of last year. So after February, it might have been June or July. I started August 9th because we had a luncheon at Lake Murray.
So you worked through the school year in 2012.
Right.
And then you didn't have that job anymore.
I'm going to object as to relevance at this time regarding publicity.
Okay, let's get this geared back into the publicity part of it.
Sure.
Thank you.
You left this position that you held in February of 2012 in late May?
Yes.
Okay. And then you were unemployed until August?
Until, August. I started August 9th.
And did you work days? My question's pretty simple. Were there periods of time where you had a lot more opportunity to watch the news or read about things happening?
More free time, yeah.
Okay. And what period was that?
What do you mean by what period?
What period of time between February of 2012 and today?
I still don't understand what you're asking.
Okay. What I was trying to get at was, I'll ask it this way. When you were unemployed, did you pay any more attention to the news than you do generally when you are working?
Nope. Gym. I do a lot of training for powerlifting and arm wrestling competitions. So when I'm not at the gym, I'm walking my dog or spending time with my mom.
When you do watch TV and get news on TV, that's from Channel 13?
Yeah, that's the only one I really watch, just for the weather forecast. They're usually news, weather, news, weather.
You had mentioned that your idea of what the case is about is that Mr. Zimmerman was a community patrol guard and that he was patrolling the area. What makes you think that from what you heard?
From what I remembered, when I turned it on, remember News 13, I just heard the name, I changed it. I think it was at CNN 2425. I remember it being CNN. They said he was like a community patrol guard. He was just patrolling the area, and he saw a suspicious figure. And then...
Are you saying that the information that led you to believe that Mr. Zimmerman was a patrol guard who was patrolling the area came from CNN?
Yeah.
And when do you think that would have been in time?
Early March of last year? Sounds right.
Early March of 2012?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. And when about was it that you said you got sick of hearing about this case and basically tuned it out?
Man, about 3 days later, because I was turning on Zimmerman, Travion, Skittles. It felt like I was just getting the same information. It's just they were telling it in different ways. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't interesting to me. I don't find this news. And this is my pessimistic point of view. It's like there's shootings every day. I don't see what the big deal is about the case. So I just, at the time, I only gave it 1 or 2 thoughts, and I just moved on.
Okay. During that time frame that you were paying a little more attention to it, were you aware of any sort of public demonstrations or protests?
Objection is to interjecting facts as opposed to asking the witness what
Okay.
he remembers.
Unsustained.
Your Honor, I've not indicated in any way who or what cause.
We don't even know if he is aware of any other events occurring
Yes,
at all.
that's-
And you suggested to him that something had occurred, and that is what the objection is to the suggestion, instead of asking him what does he remember occurring. And that's what I sustained.
That's the predicate of every question that I have, is whether the prospective juror is aware from his exposure to the media if certain events took place or facts concerning the
Since it
case.
hadn't been objected to before, I hadn't had to make a ruling. It's now objected to, and I'm making a ruling. Thank you.
Did you read anything or hear anything on TV about any demonstrations or protests?
You can ask him what he has heard or read or what he knows.
Have you heard or read anything related to demonstrations or protests.
Do I still answer? I don't do much reading. I really don't. As far as demonstrations, like protests, I mean, I'm not sure where you're getting at. I don't remember. I'm telling you what I remember. Zimmerman was a patrol guard. Something Lakes. I forget what the name is, but now it's gonna bother me. Something Lakes. He saw a suspicious figure, and I don't know what happened. There was an altercation. That's all I know. I remember hearing there was an altercation, and unfortunately, Trayvon Martin. It's sad that went down like that, but that's all I know. I don't remember there being demonstrations of any sort.
Do you remember hearing anything about this case in the news that suggested there may be racially
You know, you understand objection. I would object to.
Council approach, please.
sometimes.
Gotcha.
Maybe I should be more precise in my question. Are you saying that you only heard or something about this case that one time when you were channel surfing and you heard it several times in the same hour?
Yeah, same hour and next same stuff. So,
I know you said it seemed to be the same thing over and over again. Are you saying that all of that happened on one day or over a period of time?
no, over a period of time.
From at or about the time it first hit the news until about when were you aware of what was going on?
When I first heard about it, I did the 1 hour pull up. Okay, then I heard what I heard, turned it off. Next day, went to gym, did my thing, and went to work. Came back home, channel surfing, same thing. So afterwards, I was like, okay, this is gonna be going on for a while. I don't want to deal with it, so just turn off the TV.
All right, and then after that, now we're talking within the first 2 or 3 weeks after this happened?
Yeah, first 2 or 3 weeks. Oh man, it's gym competitions. I didn't watch any TV whatsoever. Like none.
Okay, just help me understand the time frame better.
Okay. So early March, I don't know, the first week of March is when I first heard about it. The time I got the 1 hour pull up. And then about 3 days afterwards, tops, okay, I stopped watching TV. So if I had to give you a date, maybe March 8th, 9th. Yeah, it's about the latest. And then afterwards, I just went out in my life. I didn't care to hear any more about it or to see any TV. I was busy before gym, my competitions, so.
Okay. Are you saying that after March 8th, first couple of weeks in March, that you haven't heard or read anything about the case?
Definitely not reading. No, I don't do any reading whatsoever. No newspapers or any books, anything like that. And then maybe about a month after is when I had the two friends who were like, hey, you know, how do you feel about this? I'm like, oh, whatever, I don't care. So, and then that must happen April, like April 2nd, April 3rd. So.
Okay. So the two friends you were talking about, this was 3 people in a discussion about the case?
No, it's, I'll be more clear with that. I won't give his name, but we always hang out. We go to Steak and Shake a lot. It's like girl time. And we're just talking guy stuff, girls and whatever, and then he brings it up. I don't remember the leadway into it, but he was very passionate about it. You know, he was upset or whatever.
And what was he passionate about specifically?
Oh, about how Zimmerman and Travion, Zimmerman was in the wrong for doing that, and Travion was innocent. Okay, he was passionate. He felt like, you know, poor kid. And then,
What did he tell you that you heard that he thought Zimmerman had done that made him responsible for what happened?
oh, he thought Zimmerman just straight up shot him.
Walked up to him and shot him?
No, he just said he shot him. He didn't say, oh, he walked up to him and shot him. He just said he shot the poor kid.
Okay. Did he describe for you any of the circumstances that he was taking into account when he thought that Mr. Zimmerman was guilty?
No, he's a very blunt guy. He would say what's on his mind. So he was like, yeah, Zimmerman just shot the kid. And then I was like,
Okay. What did you think about that?
I was sitting in my shake. I didn't care about what he was talking about, so
Did you believe him?
no.
Is this a guy whose opinion you value?
No, I mean, like I said, he's a close friend of mine. He's like a bro. But he's the last person I go to for advice. Or I wouldn't, no.
All right, so you don't really take what he says seriously, no matter what his opinion is?
There you go, right. That's, I won't.
You just write that one off. Okay. How about the other guy that was there?
I don't remember where we were hanging out, but he wasn't there with us. It was just my friend and I, my friend who was the passionate one about, okay, Trevion and Zimmerman was wrong, the passionate one. The other one laid back. I'm trying to remember if where we were at the time. I'm not sure, but the other one, he's someone whose opinion that I will bother you more because we went to school together and he helped me become a math tutor and whatnot. So, but he was like more laid back about it. He was like, okay, you're just patrolling your area, you know, someone you see suspicious and a place you normally don't see the person, naturally you'd be aroused for your suspicions. Okay? And he was very laid back in describing it.
Did he talk with you about what he thinks happened that led up to Trayvon Martin being shot?
No, he's just like, okay, well, he just 100% believed that, all right, Zimmerman was right.
By right, meaning in self-defense or some right in some other way?
I don't know what he's... I don't want to say by self-defense because, again, there was an altercation. I don't know what happened. There was something happened that led Zimmerman to do that Trayvon Martin. I don't know what happened. He didn't go into detail either. He was just like, yeah, you know, he's watching this area. And I think he took it in the way like it's almost like in your yard and they're in your property. So you have like the right to, I don't want to say shoot, but you have the right to like get off my property, you know?
Mm-hmm. Did you hear any information in this case about how this event started? The altercation you talked about. Any more information about
No,
what the...
it's just, I kept hearing that word thrown wrong. Altercation.
Mm-hmm.
Altercation. And that's what I remember and that's the way I still see it. Something happened, okay, from when he saw Trayvon to when, you know, Trayvon, he passed away. Something happened in there and...
Is there anything based upon what you know of the case from the limited media or conversations with friends that you think George Zimmerman did wrong?
I don't know what, I won't be able to give you a clear answer. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not asking for your opinion on the facts of the case because obviously you couldn't have the facts for that kind of decision without being on the jury. What I want to know, though, is what you believe based upon what you've heard outside this courtroom.
I don't have any opinion about that. Something happened. Okay, well, what happened? Because I haven't made a decision if that's what you're asking.
Right. Are you leaning one way or another as to whether this was self-defense or not?
Oh.
You think it could be self-defense?
Action, Your Honor, improper.
Sustained. You're asking a potential juror to comment on the issues in the case. That's not appropriate.
That's only based upon what he knows.
Sustained.
Have you decided in any way that it wasn't self-defense?
Same objection, Your Honor. Improper.
Sustained.
We have a moment.
Yes, you may.
Anything else that you remember about the facts of the case from the media that you haven't specifically said here today?
No, everything I told you is what I remember. Yeah.
One brief area. I know you have worked at schools over the last year or so. Have there been any events at the schools where you've worked in connection with this case that you've been a part of?
No.
Have you had any conversations with students about this case?
No, as soon as they were always talking about, they were teenagers. They were talking about girls, you know, parties, that sort of thing. Nothing ever came up about Zimmerman or, I mean, I don't think they would care to listen to that kind of stuff. So I don't remember hearing anything, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Just remain seated for just a moment, and counsel, when you're ready, please approach. Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and bring in the next juror.
E22, Your Honor.
Please be seated. And you are going to be referred to from here on out as Juror E22. And the attorneys are going to have an opportunity to ask you questions about the questionnaire that you filled out Monday morning. And we're going to begin with Mr. De La Ronda. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, juror number E22.
Thank you.
You've written down here on the questionnaire what you recall in terms of the evidence that you heard about in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've got on here that the source was the newspapers and TV?
Correct.
What newspapers? Newspaper, excuse me. I don't know if you meant plural or
Well,
singular.
it's primarily the Orlando Sentinel.
Okay. And your TV sources were that local or national?
Primarily local.
Do you recall what station?
The big three.
Okay. Kind of whichever one what you were looking
Yeah,
at?
wherever.
Okay. And not the national one?
Well, I'm sure I heard some,
Sure.
but it was not on a daily basis.
When you first heard about it, was at the beginning, and when I say the beginning, back in February of 2012?
That is when I first heard of it, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you keep up with it, or did you periodically check up on the story? Or
It was not a daily, it was checking in maybe 3 or 4 times a week to see, okay, you know, but it came on as part of the news that I was watching, so.
you're just a routine news watcher, and when they came up, you would see it
I
at
would
that
listen.
time?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you do any particular research to try to find out more information on the internet or anything like that?
No, I did not.
You don't partake in Facebook and all of that stuff?
I do not.
Okay. So you're limited, your knowledge was limited to just what you saw on TV and then what you read in the newspaper?
That is correct.
Okay. Would you agree that the newspaper and TV sometimes does not get everything right in terms of what they broadcast?
I would agree.
Okay. And the question is, can you agree that whatever you saw on TV or read in the newspaper, you can set aside and leave it outside the courtroom?
I think so, I would agree.
Okay. Do you understand the law requires for people to make a decision only on the facts that come out in the trial itself?
I understand that.
Do you have any issue about that? Do you have any doubt in your mind that you can do that?
No, I think I can do that.
Okay. What you've also got here is that heard of the shooting of T. Martin by G. Zimmerman, and that T. Martin was unarmed, black and young, and that G. Zimmerman had a gun, is white and Hispanic. Or white/Hispanic, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember any details about what happened or what the media said happened? Do you remember any details about what they said happened?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Okay. Anything come to mind right now in terms of what the media said happened, in terms of how this started or anything like that?
Well, that one individual, George Zimmerman, was following Trayvon Martin.
Okay.
And that's how it basically seemed to have started.
All right, okay. Now, did you watch any of the proceedings in court? You know, that was broadcast periodically. Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't, in terms of what occurred in court.
Periodically, I would have seen something if it was on the news and I happened to be watching.
Do you remember anything about any of the court proceedings at all?
Nothing specific that I could.
Nothing
yeah.
just comes to mind?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Do you remember in your watching of the case on TV or reading about it in the newspaper, you remember seeing any pictures about anything related to the case?
Yeah, saw
What
pictures.
pictures do you remember that come to mind right now?
Well, saw pictures of Trayvon Martin, various ones, and pictures of George Zimmerman. Yeah. The attorneys.
The attorneys?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you listen to any commentators talking about the case, both locally and nationally?
Yeah, as they were, some of them doing their news stories, yes, they would have other people who were,
Right.
I guess, experts,
Right.
offering opinions.
Okay. Do you necessarily take what those so-called expert, I'm using the word, do you take that at face value as they're telling you that you have to believe everything they say?
That's their opinion, no, it's, no.
So you would agree that those are opinions that you can disregard, and more specifically at a trial, you have to disregard? Do you have any question about that?
No, I don't.
Do you recall any other events or actions related to the case that come to mind at this time, other than what you've told us so far?
Well, I remember the marches that were part initially of the coverage on the news.
Did that have an impact on your opinion one way or the other? And I know I should state you have no opinion, but
Yeah.
how did you feel about the marches that
Well,
took place?
it was clearly a volatile issue, and, you know, that's what was riveting.
Okay. I'm assuming you did not participate in any of those marches?
I did not.
Okay. Aside from the media, both locally and nationally, and newspaper, I should say media, TV, and newspaper, have you talked to people, friends or family about the case?
Yes.
Okay. Have those individuals expressed their opinions about the case?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you express opinions about the case yourself in talking to those individuals?
Yes. I did.
And you recall what your opinions were about when you were discussing it with those individuals?
Yeah, one of the opinions that I expressed was that I did feel that initially the police should have been a bit more proactive in their interaction.
Okay. Anything else that comes to mind?
No.
And when you say the police should have been more active in terms of a full investigation, or what I
A
shouldn't
full
have asked you that.
investigation is what my opinion was, yeah.
Would what you heard from relatives or friends sway you in any way in arriving at a decision in this case?
No, it was up for
Okay.
debate, and that's
All right.
it.
It was a debate between you or other people,
Yeah, I mean, we're expressing our opinions to each other. Yeah.
and that opinion you expressed about the police investigation, what they did, would that sway you in any way? And my point is, can you agree to rely on the facts that actually come into this courtroom?
Yeah, I can agree to rely on the facts as per here.
Okay. In other words, you don't have a secret agenda here. Let me get on the jury and I'm going to vote a certain way, but I'm going to answer things now so I'll get on the jury.
No, I don't have a secret agenda.
Okay. Any other place that you can recall, or any other triggering events that you would have had discussions with other people? You mentioned family and friends and the media. Any other sources that you obtained information about the case that you can think of? I may have covered everybody, family, friends, and
Yeah,
media.
that's, yeah.
Okay, all right. And I gather in answering completely or responding to the questionnaire, you realize in terms of conflicts that you have to be setting aside some time. The judge hasn't decided whether a jury will be sequestered or not. You can abide by that. Is that correct?
Correct, I can.
Okay. That we have a withdrawal. Just a few follow-up questions. You mentioned at one point you expressed an opinion that police should have been more proactive. Is that correct? Regarding that, can you set that aside, your feelings at that time about that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. In other words, that cannot interfere in any way in your decision. Do you understand
I
that?
understand
Do you
that.
have any question about being able to set that aside?
No.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Afternoon, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, doing well. The process that we're doing today is just to find out what information that you know about the case before you get here. Because obviously there's a huge difference between what you've heard outside and what's going to be what we call relevant or admissible evidence here. So we want to sort of see what it is you know about. So my questions are going to be with that sort of as a filter. So as I go through this, if anything that I say or anything that Mr. Del Rionda said brings up more information to discuss, please let me know so we can go over it. How long have you lived in the Seminole County area?
12 years, I think. Yeah.
And you most of your news is from just I think you said the big three, the local 3 stations?
Correct.
Is that the local 3 stations or the national 3 stations that are seen locally?
Well, the local ones, and I do watch them afterwards to cycle into,
Okay.
if I'm not doing something else, yeah, it'll cycle over to the national news on that station.
So you might be watching the NBC local, it rolls over to the NBC nightly news,
Correct.
and you'll get some information from there as well?
Correct.
And also from the Orlando Sentinel?
Correct.
Do you subscribe to that?
I do subscribe to the Sentinel.
And have, at least since this event, which is back in February 2012,
Yes.
so, and read it most days?
Most days, yeah.
The Orlando Sentinel has covered this case fairly extensively. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And I think that you said 3 or 4 times a week you sort of hear or read something about this. Would that include the Orlando Sentinel?
Yes.
In any of the stations that you have watched, both the big 3, local or national, or the Orlando Sentinel, would you acknowledge that they have different perspectives on what they report?
I would agree with that, yes.
Do you ever watch other stations like Fox or CNN or MSNBC?
I do occasionally watch CNN, not that often, but I do watch it, yeah.
Did you notice any particular way that the Orlando Sentinel was reporting the case?
No, I won't say that they had a particular way of reporting it.
Or a slant to their reporting, particularly to this case?
No, I can't say that I have found them to have a particular slang.
Did you notice any perspective that was given by the media in general during the first couple of weeks after Trayvon Martin's passing?
During the first couple of weeks, there did seem to be an indication that this was an unarmed youth that was killed by someone who was following him for not good reasons.
Okay. Did you notice whether or not that fact scenario was what was fueling some of the media coverage of this?
I think so, yeah.
You had mentioned in your answers to your questionnaires a couple of things. Well, in your questionnaire, you noted that Trayvon Martin was black and George Zimmerman was white or Hispanic. Did you notice whether or not the media was focusing on those differences as part of their coverage?
Well, initially, yes. I mean, he was described as a white male, and Trayvon is a black youth male. And after some, I don't know what, but eventually it seemed to migrate over to this broader description, and they explained as much as they could why they broadened the description, reflecting on his family. I said, okay, well, that seems to fill in the picture a little better.
I understand. It's a great insight, but can you explain to me what you mean a little bit more by that?
His parentage, so that he had a father who I think is white and a mother who is not. So that would be the Hispanic or Latino portion of his heritage.
And you're speaking, of course, of Mr. Zimmerman
Yes,
and how
correct.
they broadened out his cultural background from white to whatever else you just described.
Correct.
And you also mentioned that, and that you saw that change through your watching the media coverage of
Yeah,
it?
watching and reading. Yes.
Yeah. You also mentioned that there was a concern that you noticed with how Sanford police handled that matter.
Correct.
What did you notice as the concern?
Well, the concern was that the event occurred, and it seemed to me at the time that a presumption was made, whereas instead of taking George Zimmerman in and asking him additional questions at the station and booking him. That did not occur. At least from what I heard and read, it seemed like there was a lapse there. Something should have happened that didn't happen as a consequence of the initial act.
And did you note the media to have covered that in a way that suggested to you that it was because Trayvon was black and George was white, as it was first reported, that impacted on the decision not to arrest him?
Well, some certainly did suggest that was the case, yeah.
And did you get the feel from your review or reading of the media that that was the presentation that was being made?
Well, that was the suggestion that they were kind of leading the reader down the road to. That was my impression.
Tell me then, with that initial view of the outcropping of what happened that night, how you felt about that?
In reading what their take on it was.
And reading on the take being that George Zimmerman wasn't arrested because he was white and Trayvon Martin was black.
Well, my reading on it was, well, we need some more investigation here, and part of that, I think, should have been that they should have kept this man and looked at the whole expanse of what happened, instead of perhaps coming to a conclusion before they knew more of what had happened.
The conclusion being to not arrest him.
Correct.
As you continued then to notice this being played out in the media during the times that you would review either the Orlando Sentinel, the locals, or the National, did you see, in your mind, was the media, or to what extent was the media continuing that perspective? And if it changed, when you noticed a change? And that's a really, you understand what I'm asking?
Specific to the white and black
Yes.
dynamic. The only time it seemed to change was when they broadened the heritage picture of George Zimmerman. That's when it shifted slightly.
Did you see any change in the media regarding Sanford Police Department's handling of it? Did you note any of that?
I can't say I noted, they kind of stopped talking about it to some extent. Yeah, but I can't see that anything changed in how that was being reported, but they just didn't talk about that part of it as much any longer.
Having now viewed it over the, let's say, almost 16 months since the event, how have you noted that the media has changed, if they've changed, with their coverage of this event?
I think that it's a more tempered approach now. It's not as inflamed, but kind of like they're standing waiting for some inflammation to occur, but I think now it's not as inflamed. That's my perception of it, and it may be because time has passed, I don't know. But,
Sure. And again, all of this, I'm trying to get a good feel for your perspective and how it came, or how you came to that perspective from the media. So, we talked a little bit about the Orlando Sentinel and your perspective on them, not to drill through too much deeper to all of the other local stations in the National, but with what the conversation we just had about the media, is that sort of the generic change that you noticed, or across all the medias that you had an opportunity to look at? There wasn't one that sticks out as being different, or is there?
No, I think I would paint it as generic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to steal a word, I don't even know which channel it is, not to steal a catchphrase from them, but is what you're saying that at least over the year and a half of this that it's become more balanced or more,
Yeah, I think I used the word tempered, but yes, I would
Tempered.
say I think it is a bit more balanced now, and I think part of it is maybe because some time has passed.
in addition then to the local national media and Orlando Sentinel, Mr. De Leon asked you about other inputs that you have either to you and then back out from you as far as opinions. The question that you answered in the jury questionnaire is what we call sort of an ultimate opinion question. That is, have you formed an opinion as to the defendant's guilt or innocence? And that's sort of the ultimate question in all this. But my question of you, and I think you answered it to a certain extent to Mr. De La Rionda, is other opinions, maybe not an opinion of that ultimate issue, but just other opinions that you formed about this case. So I want to ask a few more things about that, okay? In talking to your family members, can you tell me just a bit more, when you say they express their opinions and you would express more, tell me a bit more about that.
Well, it's not primarily family members, it'd be friends.
Okay.
During the times when there were demonstrations early on, after the event occurred, that was a time when, because the event was so widely covered by the media, that it was an opportunity for a lot of interaction to occur between friends and whomever else. And so, yeah, there was discussion between friends, myself, and others regarding what had happened, what we thought had happened, what we had read had happened, and it was basically a sharing to some extent of information. Well, I heard that, and then, well, that other group said this, and, but I think at the heart of it, we all realize it's early on. We don't know what happened. Something happened, but, and everyone is getting information from somewhere, but it was untested information.
And the protests that you speak of, you're talking about some of the demonstrations in Sanford.
Correct.
They happened, was it your perspective that they happened early on in this overall process of 16 months?
Yes.
Do you think, and again, not to put words in your mouth, was that happening at a time before the media became, your words, more tempered about what was happening and not happening?
Oh yeah, at the time the media was not, in my opinion, not as tempered, during the demonstrating phase.
Did it then seem to you and your friends that the matter was more opposed to George Zimmerman and favorable to Trayvon Martin as the media was covering it?
Coupled with those demonstrations, I would say yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did that media influence, I'm going to call it media bias, just for the purpose of this question or two, how did that media bias affect the opinions of your friends and your opinion when you were having these discussions about your opinions about the matter?
Well, one of the things that came up was that looking at other events that had happened in our lives, kind of tempering it with, let's not jump the gun. And that phrase came up quite a few times because, if you live long enough, you know that whatever happens initially, what comes out of it, it's going to take a little bit more exploration to see what the whole thing, whatever the thing is, was about, what all the parts of that puzzle are. And so while you might have an opinion in the beginning, it's probably not the one you're going to have at the end because you have more information to base it on. So while we debated, if you want to call it that, or just shared information, I think we were all steady enough to realize that more is going to come out of this.
If I asked you, those people who you've had these discussions with, and again, I guess we'll say it primarily to the time early on, when you were talking about the discussions you had with friends, what percentage of those conversations and opinions sort of followed the media bias, in effect, were more favorable to the perspective that George Zimmerman had done something wrong or that Trayvon Martin had not? If I ask you for a percentage of those conversations or opinions.
I can say the majority,
Okay.
yeah, but, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And back then, how did the media, and again, I'm using bias just to focus on the conversation. I don't want to just hammer it as them being completely biased, but how did that media bias affect your opinion?
I noticed it. I was not ignorant of it, but I also realized that there's going to be more, But the initial feeling I had was that the police should have been more interactive. They should have been more proactive in dealing with the situation early on.
Mm-hmm. Did any of that spill over onto your opinion of Mr. Zimmerman?
No, because at that point it was in the hands of the police.
Right.
Yeah,
It was mainly a focus on SPD's actions or inactions.
correct. Mhm.
I began this by saying that the primary purpose of this inquiry is to be certain that you can both identify the difference, sounds simplistic to say it that way, but identify the difference between what you've heard before the trial and what you've heard during the trial.
Understood.
More importantly is to make sure that what you've heard before the trial, that we're not going to try and wipe your memory clean, is just not going to impact your opinions or your decisions in the courtroom. So in that context, if the majority of your friends had the opinion back then or still have it now, based upon media perspective or whatever, of a certain view, and the evidence suggested a different view, how would you handle that?
Well, I'd have to go with what the evidence suggests.
Any concern, were that to be your decision, of defending that position to the friends who seemingly may have a differing view?
Well, I don't see that I would have to defend it. I mean, you offer it, and it's on the table.
Maybe it's because I'm married, I tend to have to defend my positions no matter what they are, so I just thought maybe you would have an opportunity then to have to say to somebody, yes, I voted this way, and then you'll say, well, why? And then I'm just curious whether or not, based upon those predispositions that those friends may have, that you would be able to, or that you'd feel comfortable in a position of having to explain your decision.
Well, yeah, if I were free to do so, yes, I would be able to explain. I mean, to get to a decision, I would have to use reason, and so, I would have a construct to say, I got here by this information, by this path.
Okay. Based, at least in part, on what I'm terming media bias, and obviously because of why we're here today, dealing with pretrial publicity, do you carry any concerns with you of being able to sit as a juror in the case because of any potential aftermath of anything regarding your verdict in this case?
Well, I don't have any specific fears, but, I would hope generally that people would be respectful and non-violent, but I don't have any specific fears for my own safety, no.
You had mentioned that it was, I don't know if it came specifically from the media or if it was just an opinion of yours, that I think your words were that this event is quite a volatile issue. Tell me what you mean by that and where that came from.
Did I answer that in reference to the demonstrations, or?
I thought you had, yes, ma'am.
Okay. The fact that people were demonstrating indicated a level of emotion that was heated, and that it can easily sway other people to also become as agitated, as heated, as concerned, or as proactive as those folks who were out there demonstrating. That makes it volatile because others can easily take the sentiment that was being expressed and use it in very negative ways.
Has your opinion, since your first view of the case, tempered along with the tempering that you've noticed in the media? Or tell me how your opinion has either cemented or modified since your first perspective on it.
That first thread that I had, I still hold, and that is that the police should have behaved, they should have done more than they did initially, and I still hold that.
Any, has there been any, or did you have an opinion of Mrs. Zimmerman that was less balanced than it is today?
No, it is as balanced as it was. I really don't know anything more that I've heard in the media about George Zimmerman other than his ethnicity. Yeah, that's, the only thing I can recall that has been added to that picture.
Okay. Are you aware from the media coverage whether or not that issue of the differing ethnicities has been drilled into by the media or any other information about this case?
Well, it seemed to have been presented with some fanfare, like, oh, we now know this, and this is a big thing, and let us, but I think that might have been part and parcel of, that was the news item for the day, and so, it got a lot more attention.
Can you tell me about some of those issues that sort of hit some fanfare along the way? Or just pieces of evidence or whatever it might be?
Well, I remember the debate or the discussions that ensued when the differing pictures of Trayvon Martin were shown. And, and I thought, well, okay, one camp had one picture and it seemed like another camp, and I'm being loose with my word here, had another picture. They had differing pictures of George Zimmerman. And one was a previous picture where he was a much larger person, and then he was a much more svelte kind of sized person. But again, those things got, I think, an inordinate amount of attention. And I understand why, but it just seemed it was a bit much.
Okay. Any other items like that? We've talked about differing pictures. I won't go into them. They were just certain pictures of Trayvon Martin, let's say sort of along a different spectrum, both age and maybe attitude. And the same thing with Mr. Zimmerman?
Correct.
Okay. Any other specific things that sort of raised to the, above the waves a little bit that caught your attention?
Yeah, when they played in the media, when it was shared the call, the information, I think the person who called 911 and the person in the neighborhood, and playing some of that conversation with the dispatcher.
Okay. Did you have a chance to listen to that
Yes.
when it was played? Did that cause any reaction in you?
Well, it was just shock that this person I think it was a woman in her home, went through this, and that she heard someone get killed. She heard a gunshot, and that's got to be.
And that was a gunshot that you can actually hear yourself when you listen to the tape?
Yeah.
And if I asked you, I won't ask you for 3 more things, so we'll say that you've already answered 2. With about one more thing that sort of sticks out, that's something that you noted or noticed about this case that caught your attention. So we've now talked about the varying pictures. Was there more than one tape that you listened to or heard in the media?
There might have been, but the one that sticks out is this woman who called 911.
We are hesitant to prompt you with specific pieces of evidence. No. You're doing fine. I'm just telling you that I need to be cautious. We hesitate to prompt you with particular pieces of evidence, but can you think of any other tape or information, audio information that you remember about this case?
There was information regarding a conversation that Trayvon Martin was supposed to have had with, I think, his girlfriend.
Okay.
And there was, I don't know what was said during that one, but that was something that also spiked interest, I think.
Okay. Anything specific that you can recall of that conversation to the extent that you're aware of it?
Well, he seemed to be speaking with her right up until the point of the actual encounter. And so that was interesting.
Okay. And there have been a lot of coverage, there has been a lot of coverage of this case, both in the media we've talked about and also on TV for not just particular to the case, but to the actual proceedings here. Have you taken any time to watch any of those proceedings?
No.
There has been some recent proceedings regarding what you just talked about, the 911 call. Are you at all familiar with that issue that's being addressed right now regarding that call?
No.
Okay. I'm almost done, but before I finish, I'm going to ask if my conversation with you here, just for the past few moments, has raised any questions that you have or brought back to mind another memory of something that we can discuss here. Because again, much rather talk about it now and get it on the table so that they know it's not going to be troublesome later. Anything else that you can think of that we haven't talked about?
Not that I can think of.
We just have 1 minute then, okay? Go ahead.
Non-attorney spokesperson.